Better Call Saul follows Jimmy McGill's journey from a criminal lawyer to the criminal lawyer, Saul Goodman we see in Breaking Bad. Jimmy is a deep and extremely well-written character. He'd be the best in the show if it weren't for his brother Chuck McGill. Chuck McGill is the most well-written character not only in Better Call Saul, but in the Breaking Bad universe as a whole. Unfortunately, Chuck gets a bad rap amongst the fans. The hatred is so deep, there is actually a subreddit dedicated to hating Chuck, called r/Chuck. Meanwhile, his brother Jimmy gets all the praise. These Redditors are severely misunderstanding what's going on here. Jimmy is essentially conning them into adoring him like he effortlessly does to the people in his life. The audience worships Jimmy and despises Chuck. Today, let's explore the question, who is worse, Jimmy or Chuck? And why, contrary to popular belief, that person is obviously Jimmy. Chuck McGill is a highly respected lawyer. So much so, the firm he helped create bends over backwards to accommodate his condition. It is established he has savant levels of intelligence because he is a master of 3 types of law, but has the charisma of a rock. His brother Jimmy McGill, on the other hand, has the charm of a Kennedy, but is as genuine as a Clinton. Many view Chuck as a mere foil to Jimmy for obvious reasons. But the key thing to remember here is Jimmy did everything wrong. Even though it's appealing to watch, Jimmy only gets success by screwing over anyone that is around him, whereas Chuck actually earned his success through hard work and not taking shortcuts. Low IQs think Jimmy is a sleazy yet mostly well-meaning person that doesn't harbor malicious intent. But Jimmy is really hiding his true egotistical intentions behind a charismatic facade. Jimmy is great with people, and everyone loves him, which is why he is the perfect con man. Chuck isn't free from sin here. He was an amazing lawyer, but his envy of Jimmy's way with people was obvious. His own mother loved Jimmy way more, and it was apparent on her deathbed, despite Jimmy being a massive disappointment. Chuck might be a flawed, jealous, schizo tattletale, but at least he isn't a chimp with a machine gun that later goes on to poison a child. Chuck and Jimmy's relationship is misunderstood as a one-way avenue of abuse. Jimmy was far worse to Chuck. In Season 3, Episode 5, Chicanery, Jimmy ruins Chuck's reputation, which is what he had been building all of his life, and was all he had at that point. Jimmy brought Cuck's wife into the hearing, just to watch Cuck get destroyed. Also, Jimmy ruins any chance Cuck would have with his wife when she fell in love with him after these awesome jokes. Chuck did do some wrong to Jimmy, like recording him and turning him over to the police. He was always jealous of Jimmy's way with people and was mad that all his jokes bombed.
What do you call 25 attorneys buried up to their chins in cement? Not enough cement.
Hold up, bruh.
Nonetheless, Chuck set Jimmy up with a job and got him out of jail. And to repay him, Jimmy is ungrateful and always held it against Chuck that he didn't get the job at HHM. Both brothers are at fault, as opposed to Chuck being the only wrongdoer. The real issue comes from how Jimmy acts after Chuck's death. Jimmy acts like he doesn't care about Chuck and shifts the blame to Howard. Jimmy basically went against everything Chuck stood for after his death and will continue to do so in Season 6 and throughout Breaking Bad. Jimmy was always willing to play dirtier than Chuck, and the events in the show prove
The winner takes it all.
and the wrong brother won. Chuck suffers from electromagnetic hypersensitivity, or EHS. People who suffer from this disorder are extra sensitive to electromagnetic fields. Chuck's so-called mental illness is often a talking point within the anti-Chuck enthusiast cult. Was it an elaborate ploy to control Jimmy that turned into a real mental illness? Or was it a part of his subconscious trying to control Jimmy from the very start? Well, these things could be true, but regardless, Chuck's intolerance for electricity is the correct stance because technology and electricity will ultimately take away from our freedom. A famous Berkeley professor, Dr. K, argues it is not possible to make a lasting compromise between technology and freedom because technology is by far the more powerful social force and continuously encroaches on freedom through the repeated compromises. Dr. K's quote is beautiful in relation because even though it looks like Chuck has more freedom than ever when he lets electricity back into his life, he gets cut out of HHM and is all alone. He has nothing except the electrical whirring of his generator. At least he died in his house, completely devoid of electricity and on his own accord, like a true Sigma male. There's no doubt that Chuck's electricity intolerance is abnormal, but just because you stand out amongst the crowd doesn't make you wrong. Sometimes it's the contrary. In Seth Godin's Purple Cow, he suggests if you're remarkable, it's likely that some people won't like you. That's the part of the definition of remarkable. Nobody gets unanimous praise ever. The best the timid can hope for is to be unnoticed. Criticism comes to those who stand out. Chuck's illness is what distinguishes him from the rest of the cattle, for he is the remarkable purple cow. Chuck does have moments where he puts down Jimmy for his own selfish jealousy and autistic tendencies, but people forget Chuck does help Jimmy. He gets him out of jail and provides him a job in the mailroom. People ask why didn't Chuck make it apparent that Jimmy wasn't going to hire him at HHM? Well, why should he? He got him a job there, and what does Jimmy do? He takes his brother's kindness and leeches off of it. Jimmy rides on Chuck's coattails for pretty much the entire series. It's confusing why people fault Chuck for not giving Jimmy a job at HHM. Jimmy had no experience as a lawyer at that point, and Chuck was right to be wary because of Jimmy's past. I suppose it could be looked at as Chuck gatekeeping, but also, why should he give Jimmy the job in the first place? Chuck wasn't just protecting his ego when he didn't hire Jimmy. He was also protecting the livelihoods of the employees at HHM, because Jimmy would have probably run the reputation of the firm through the mud. It is clear that he would have messed up even worse if Chuck hadn't hired him, so Jimmy was a screw-up regardless. If Jimmy thinks nepotism alone should get him a job at HHM as a lawyer, and not any actual talent or experience, then he can
suck me.
A common phrase that gets thrown around in referring to the brothers' morality is Jimmy does the wrong thing for the right reasons, whereas Chuck does the right things for the wrong reasons. But this doesn't quite feel right. Many times Jimmy does things that many would consider wrong, and not just in a legal sense, but also for the wrong reasons. What Jimmy does in the show was only to push his own agenda forward. To further explain this, let's look at how great philosopher Carl Jung explores the split between one's true self and persona. Jung claims that persona is characterized by a lack of relatedness. Their inner attitude therefore corresponds to a personality that is opposed to the outer personality. Jimmy's true self is an egomaniac looking to only benefit himself, but his persona is someone who claims to care about the little guy. For example, he did care about the elderly somewhat, but he wasn't above destroying Irene's social life for getting his settlement money quicker. In this scene, he changes identity in order to fool these old women, just to wrongfully turn them against Irene.
So, if you're an axe murderer but you don't have an axe, that doesn't mean that you're moral. So now, with regards to, that's the persona. And the persona is the mask that you wear, and that's what persona means, is the mask that you wear to convince yourself and the world that you're not a terrible monster, so that when you look at yourself in the mirror, you don't have to run away screaming.
Jimmy's true talent is chaos and ultimately destruction. Jimmy is very similar to Apophis, the Egyptian god of chaos. Apophis represents everything the Egyptians feared the most, the loss of one's identity. They went as far to preserve one's identity even in death. Jimmy does chaotic things all the time, and his identity switches from Jimmy to Saul to even Gene. It's as Chuck says, in the end, Jimmy hurts everyone around him. Just because he feels bad doesn't change his actions. During the part of the show when HHM was prolonging the Sandpiper case for money, it looked like Chuck and Howard were greedy in putting their money over their clients. Well, yes and no, because they had the best interest of keeping the firm afloat. Redditors see this as Jimmy good for trying to give the money to the clients and HHM bad because they were trying to prolong the lawsuit for their own financial gain. But Jimmy was doing this just as much for the money as HHM. The difference is Jimmy actually puts this poor old lady through psychological torture that probably made her contemplate suicide, whereas HHM was just trying to get more money for the failing firm because of Chuck's mental health leave that Jimmy arguably helped prolong when he implied Chuck's divorce caused the mental illness. As much as Zoomers think everything in life is free, it isn't. Chuck and Howard didn't care about the money for personal reasons. They realized HHM needed it. Just because they aren't pro-boner and trying to turn a big profit doesn't mean they're greedy. Meanwhile, every con Jimmy ran was all fueled by money and all for his own needs. Jimmy is a great people's person and can do a cool song and dance, but he's shown no proficiency for actual law and the millions of nuances surrounding it, unlike Chuck. Most of the work surrounding the initial stages of the Sandpiper case was done by Chuck anyway. All Jimmy did was find the bits of paper in the dumpster. It was Chuck who managed to put them together and find the nail in the coffin. He literally did Jimmy's job for him. When Jimmy aired the commercial in Season 2, Episode 3, he was going around his superiors to make his move, while barely having talked about a commercial at all, which is where the problem lied. Also, not fitting in with people who actually care about their job doesn't justify being a complete jerk to everyone around you just to get a bonus. It's not to say that Jimmy is a badly written character. His morality just shouldn't be held on a higher ground than really anyone, especially Howard and Chuck. Jimmy also screwed Kim over with the commercial because she is the one who vouched for him. Kim even makes a legal agreement that Jimmy can't scam her anymore. There's a common argument that Jimmy's transformation into Saul is caused in part by Chuck's failure to respect him as an honest lawyer. However, Jimmy's fall from grace was inevitable, with or without Chuck. Jimmy was already like this from the beginning, seeing his cuck dad give out free money. The only one brave enough to try and stop the runaway train that is Jimmy's career as a lawyer is his brother. Howard didn't do anything to deserve his treatment from Jimmy. It was just that Howard got in between the crossfire trying to save HHM. Even though based, Jimmy sending in those prostitutes was just so uncalled for, along with messing with Howard's car. What did Howard do to deserve this? But the instant that takes the cake is when Jimmy coldly pushes the blame onto Howard for Chuck's suicide.
Well, Howard, I guess that's your cross to bear.
This pivotal moment between Howard and Jimmy is eye-opening because it proves how he is not taking any responsibility for Chuck's death. Furthermore, Jimmy is willing to pin it on another innocent man. This scene is similar to the Bible story of Cain and Abel. The story goes like this. Cain gets salty because Abel sacrificed the lamb and God loved it. Yes! So Cain kills Abel and God asks,
Where is your brother Abel?
Am I my brother's keeper?
This mirrors Saul shifting the blame to Howard. God cursed Cain to be a vagabond and a fugitive, similar to Jimmy being cursed after Chuck's death. Cain says this in response to his curse.
My punishment is greater than I can bear, and that anyone who finds me shall kill me.
God responds with,
I mark you, and if anyone kills you, then you will be avenged 7 times.
Everything that happens to Jimmy and all of his actions are unquestionably impure after this. Similar to Cain, after Jimmy kills Chuck, he's cursed to wander the earth, and no one can kill him. Jimmy is protected from death. In conclusion, there's no denying Chuck definitely stands between Jimmy and his goals of becoming a lawyer, therefore making his life harder. But it is all undeniably for good reason. I'm not crazy. I know Michael McKean's performance as Chuck has filtered an audience of plebs to make him out to be worse than his shyster brother slipping Jimmy. I knew it from the very start. Jimmy uses people for his own gain, like Irene for money, Howard for entertainment, or Chuck for status. At first I thought Jimmy was cool, even looked up to him. As if I could ever make such a mistake. Never! Never! You think this is bad? This chicanery? He'll do worse. After Chuck died, there is no moral resistance for Jimmy to fully become Saul. And with season 6 coming soon, we will see how bad the consequences truly are. No, in the end, Chuck is petty, jealous, and causes psychological harm to his brother. But Jimmy defecated through a sunroof. And he saved him. And he shouldn't have. He took him into his own firm. What was he thinking?
He'll never change. He'll never change. Ever
Even
since he was 9, always the same.
Better Call Saul is a tragedy where the winner
Couldn't
can't
keep his hands out of the cash drawer.
But not Reddit's Jimmy.
Jimmy couldn't be
Reddit's
Jimmy.
Tricking those stupid Redditors.
And he gets to be a lawyer? What a sick
joke. Chuck should have stopped him when he had the chance. Chuck is a hero in this twisted world that promotes chicanery, and you
have to stop him.
You